So for those that might be out of the loop, this weekend, NetherRealm Studios will be revealing what's next for Mortal Kombat 1. And if you missed my last video, that's where I discussed which characters I would like to see join the game. And today's video will be about basically everything else I'd like to see in the next year of MK1. And the first place to start is going to be a story expansion. Now, it's pretty much all but confirmed. NetherRealm is going to drop another story expansion, just like they did with Mortal Kombat 11. I personally really enjoyed the story in MK1. I felt like with this whole reset, NetherRealm had a new story to tell, and they also got a chance to get like super creative and really build this quote-unquote new era for these characters, and also finding ways to shift relationships between characters. Some are nice to each other now, some hate each other now, some are evil now, and it was all just really fun to see. A story expansion would also go a long way in just changing it up a bit for players. The only DLC we've known up to this point is patches and character drops, which is great, don't get me wrong, but seeing what the story team over at NRS has been up to and all the cutscenes, it'll just be so great. Plus, a lot of new players jumped on board with the game when characters like Peacemaker or Homelander dropped, and honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if some people didn't even know that there was a story mode in this game. But seeing an expansion dropping for it would definitely bring people in to check out the campaign, which is amazing because honestly, MK1 story deserves a playthrough if you enjoy the characters or the game, even in the slightest. With a story expansion, I would assume we would be fighting in different areas or realms based on where I could see them going with it, and this means that there's gotta be new stages added to the game. Now, I do love all the stages and the variety in MK1. The stages have different times of day, different seasons, from beautiful landscapes to disgusting basements, and they all look amazing. But when the game first dropped, and I noticed there were no stage interactables as a feature, which is basically like some stages would have something you could throw or like jump off of, and MK1 got rid of that. So in my head, I thought they were gonna flood this game with stages. There's no interactables to balance or anything, so in theory, you could just have an infinite number of them. Now, I know that's getting ridiculous, but stage variety is such an easy way to make a game feel fresh, and I was pretty shocked none were added within the timeline of Combat Pack 1. Most of this, though, is honestly me just being like a pit overlord and just itching for that stage to come back, but it also made me realize that, yeah, nothing new in terms of stages has been added in like a whole year, for the most part. NRS has an entire catalog of iconic ones that people would love to see in a modern-gen Mortal Kombat game, but not only that, the design team at NRS has knocked the 20 plus that are in the game now out of the park. I could only imagine how good some brand new ones could look, maybe even becoming some of people's new favorite stages as well. And now the most obvious, if you've been around the channel long enough, of what I'd like to see added to the game is, of course, more brutalities. There was a point in MK11 where like the only thing dropping for the most part were like 2 new brutalities every season or so, and honestly, it was glorious. By the end of the game, every character had so many brutalities, there were almost more moves with a brutal than without for some characters. And I like that MK1 dropped with each character technically having 6 brutalities, 5 if you don't count the uppercut, and also cameos each having 2 of their own except for Shijinko. However, I'm not quite sure why they removed unlocking new brutalities from Combat League challenges. And now that I actually think about it, there are no Combat League challenges either, but that's not what's important here. Now, I did like that they added the universal secret throw brutality that every character gets, but there haven't been any additional character-specific ones added. My thought is obviously there's going to be more brutalities added to the game, and my assumption is that since we have character mastery now, where all base game characters go to level 35, and DLC characters have up to level 20, I feel like they would just add 5, 10 levels to each character, and within those levels, a new brutality or 2 is in there, probably some new skins, new taunts, calling cards, which all of this, by the way, just kind of gets bundled into this idea of just adding more to every character. The skins in the game are definitely getting better. When the game first launched, it was pretty much like 1 or 2 skins per character, then just a ton of color swaps for those. Also, what was super bizarre was last season's seasonal store only had like 2 items per character, and sometimes those were just 2 gear pieces. But what I will say is, from what I've seen so far in the new season, the skins are pretty sweet and definitely unique, so we're on the right path for sure. I think adding a few levels to every character is probably the move. Some people might not want to grind all the way up to like level 45 or 50 with a character, which I get, so perhaps some XP balancing will have to take place if that is the case, but characters getting more brutes, more skins, more taunts, is all something I'd really like to see. And though this isn't really like a mechanic or something added to the game, I just like to keep seeing NRS updating the game. Each new patch has pretty drastically altered the game as a whole, and I feel like they have a pretty good vision of how they want MK1 to play, and at the same time, I do feel like they're just kind of opening floodgates. I mean, every time a new cameo drops, everything changes, and some of the updates to not as popular characters have brought them right up in popularity, and even adding new moves to characters out of nowhere. Sometimes they're just like, yeah, this character has a brand new combo string that launches or is safe, and now just a whole new route of possibilities and cameo potential opened up. The other thing I'd like to see, and I've mentioned this in some past videos like years ago, but I would love weekend online matchmaking tournaments, where basically your first game, you're in the open pools, quote unquote, everyone is playing. If you win that first match, you move on to the quarterfinals, and you'll only match against someone else that's in the quarters. And then obviously, as you get to the finals, you're only able to matchmake against someone else in the finals. And if you win, you get like a sweet skin that could be themed around whatever the tournament is, calling cards, emblems, whatever. And ironically, FIFA used to have these weekend tournaments like this like a decade ago when I used to play, and I would grind all weekend trying to win, because by the time you got to the semis, it was like ruthless. And then of course, if you do win that tournament over the weekend, it becomes locked, you got the reward, and you can't just be in there gatekeeping people from the finals. But I would love to just integrate this into the Mortal Kombat menu, because I feel like it would also open up an opportunity for people to go travel for tournaments or play in tournaments, or at least go watch one. But keeping the game fresh, updating characters, new stages for us to play with a mix of nostalgic ones in there, like the pit, a brand new combat pack filled with characters and cameos. I think year 2 will be even more fun than year 1, and I've been loving every minute of it so far. So be sure to let me know down in the comments what your hopes are for the future of Mortal Kombat 1.